Hello everyone, Jai Hind and good morning. Welcome to the platform of StudyIQ IAS in English. My name is Bhanwar Singh and I welcome you all on the platform. And today once again we are live and we'll be doing the complete The Hindu analysis. We'll be seeing which all important news are there in our today's The Hindu edition. So if you're live and you're watching me live right now, please type in the message and let me know that you're watching this session live. Hello and good morning to everyone. Kaizen, good morning. Green Carper, good morning. Who else is here? Please type in the message and let me know that you're watching this session live along with me. All right. So today again we'll be moving ahead and we'll be doing the complete analysis of the important articles which are there in our today's The Hindu. Good morning, Ramu and Kundan. Good morning to you too. All right. So let's start the session. Let's talk about the complete analysis that we'll be doing moving forward. Good morning, Ramu. Anuj, good morning. And hello everyone. All right. Now, when it comes to the quote, so over here, you can see that there is an editorial that is there in our today's The Hindu, and this editorial is by Shashi Tharoor. So over here, this quote could be used, and it is very useful. Reshma, good morning, and good morning, Tenu. All right, this is over here. Prosperity built on fragile foundations cannot endure. Stability requires not only wealth and ambition, but also cooperation. So again, this is important quote that you can use. Now coming forward to the important articles that are there in our today's The Hindu. So these are some of the important articles that we'll be discussing in today's session. We'll be talking about West Bengal elections. All right, they had been conducted yesterday. All right, we'll be talking about it. Along with this, we'll be talking about the free trade agreement that is between, or that has been signed between India and New Zealand. Leah, good morning, and hello Zenith. All right, then we'll be talking about Iran war as well as the Gulf crisis. This is again important. And then we'll be talking about the Supreme Court judgment that had been on the hate speech. Again, very important. All right, then we'll be talking about the NSO health survey as well. We'll be speaking about the India and China relationship. There had been bilateral talks alongside with the SCO summit. So that is again important that we'll be talking about. Then the creamy layer debate, that is again, there is an article that speaks about creamy layer within the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. And again, this is again very important when it comes to your prelims as well as for mains as well. Krishna, good morning. All right, then comes the antiquities which had been returned. So there had been antiques which had been returned to India. So again, this is again very important for your upcoming prelims. And then we'll be talking about the natural gas security as well. So these are the things that we will be covering in our today's The Hindu. All right, so let's start the session and let's move ahead to the first of the news that is there. And this is about the West Bengal Assembly election. The phase 2 had been conducted yesterday. And it says that there had been heavy polling during phase 2 as well. As per the article, if you go through the article, it says that there had been total of 92.6% of the turnout. All right, the total turnout was in the phase 2, it was 92.6%. All right, the complete second phase election, it was conducted on 142 seats in West Bengal, and there were 7 districts. This is the highest of the turnout that we have seen since independence in West Bengal. At the same time, the total across both the phases, the phase 1, phase 2, so the total had been 92.9%. And again, this is an all-time record that is there in the West Bengal. For the first time, I am happy to see Rahul Gandhi for the opposing Great Nicobar project, right? And why are we not discussing quote of the day? Already discussed it. All right. There is just one quote that I have used today. All right. And this is from the editorial itself. All right. This is from the editorial itself. This editorial is by Shashi Tharoor. So over here, I have discussed it. Prosperity built on the fragile foundations. They cannot be endured, Ramu. All right. Okay. Now coming back to the news, over here the phase 1 of the West Bengal election that was conducted on 23rd of April. And on 23rd of the April, we had seen that there had been total 93.19% of the voter percentage that have polled. All right, now over here, one of the most interesting thing that happened in phase 2 was where Bhabnipur is the epicenter, because from Bhabnipur, CM of or Chief Minister of West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee, is contesting the election. All right. At the same time, from BJP as well, we have Suvendu Adhikari, who is basically contesting against the Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. And there had been incidences where Suvendu Adhikari, he was, he was cordoned off by the TMC workers, and they have started, raising slogans, that is Joy Bongla. All right, quote of the day: you have right to perform duty, but not to the fruit of your actions. Right. All right. At the same time, according to the article, there is also the news that the Election Commission will be retaining 700 of the CAPF companies after the polling as well, because the result is on 4th of May. Now, over here, when it comes to the elections that we are seeing in the country, all right, so there had been lots of assembly elections that had been conducted, and the results will be declared on 4th of May. And this all pertains to the SIR. We have seen that there had been robust of the voter percentage that we have seen, all right, in all the elections, and that is because of the SIR, or the special intensive revision of the electoral roll that had been conducted, and this has deleted 13% of the voters, and that is the basic reason why there is the turnout that is increasing, or we are seeing the inflation of the turnout. All right. Now, over here, one more important thing that we have to remember is that Supreme Court had been involved in the SIR dispute as well. There had been judicial officers, the tribunals which were set up, and the judicial officers, they were asked to review the 27 lakh cases as well. At the same time, when it comes to the Election Commission, so after the declaration of the election, what Election Commission can do, it can transfer the officers as well. All right, the state officers, the administrative officers could be transferred on the orders of Election Commission. And that had been done in West Bengal as well. There were total 483 officials that were transferred, and this is the highest ever transfer that had ever been done in West Bengal. All right, at the same time, during this complete election phases, there were more than 510 crores of the illicit inducement that was seized during this complete exercise. All right, so over here, it is very important that there is the high decibel, or this had been high decibel contest when it comes to West Bengal. All right, and at the same time, there had been allegations that had been leveled against CAPF, against TMC, against Election Commission as well, that we have seen. All right, and these allegations, they have led to the building of trust deficit that is there. At the same time, when it comes to the Article 324, it is again important for your prelims, because Article 324, it provides the powers to the Election Commission to conduct, to superintend the elections in the country. And then Article 19, so when it comes to the part of freedom, so when it comes to Article 19, please remember that the right to vote is not a part of, or voting is not a part of the freedom that is mentioned under Article 19, but what is? It is under Article 326, and that is why Supreme Court have said that this is not a fundamental right, but right to vote is actually a constitutional or a legal right. At the same time, over here, it is very important, yes, Article 324 to 326 are for the Election Commission. All right, when it comes to the ethics, so over here, it is again very important to ponder upon the role of central forces while conducting the elections, as well as the neutrality of the Election Commission had been questioned time and again during the various elections that had been held in the country. At the same time, there had been fairness concerns when it comes to SIR as well. And also this has a governance implication, because Supreme Court had to intervene while in the electoral process, and this is a rare precedent that we have seen in our country. Yes, right to vote is a legal right or constitutional right under Article 326. True. All right. All right. Okay. Coming to the next news that we have, it is about India and the New Zealand Free Trade Agreement. This is basically an editorial piece that we are discussing. All right, on the editorial column, you will find that this is a piece that is compounding gains. The New Zealand Free Trade Agreement builds on 7 recent FTAs or free trade agreements. Now, again, this is very important because recently when it comes to India, so India has signed the 7 FTAs or free trade agreements before New Zealand. So there had been total of 8 of the free trade agreements that had been signed within the span of 3.5 years. And these FTAs, or the free trade agreements, they had been signed with Mauritius, with UAE, with Australia. Then there is EFTA that has been signed, and then that is European free trade agreement. And then we have UK, EU and Oman FTAs as well that had been signed within the span of 3.5 years. If Mamata continues, she will become longest serving. Yes, that's true. All right. At the same time, when it comes to the free trade agreement with the New Zealand, so New Zealand will remove all the goods. It will remove all the goods tariffs immediately on the execution. Now, execution, it depends upon the passing of this free trade agreement by the Parliament of New Zealand. All right, right now, this free trade agreement had been signed, but still the execution is pending because it will need support of the Parliament of the New Zealand. All right. By a slight margin, Krishna. And again, exit polls, you cannot always, go with the exit polls. What happened in Uttar Pradesh? When it comes to Uttar Pradesh, so, previously, before the BJP government, there was SAPA government or SP government, that is Samajwadi Party government. And when the elections were conducted, all the exit polls, they were favoring Samajwadi Party. All right, they were saying that Samajwadi Party will come into the power again. And suddenly there was a complete shift. So you cannot go with the exit polls. All right, they are just a kind of, you can say that it is just a kind of, you are just, I'm just skipping that the word that could be used over here. All right, it's Bengal, anything can happen anytime, right? All right, so over here, when it comes to this free trade agreement with the New Zealand, all right, with the New Zealand, so over here, all the goods, but we can't fully really, yes, you cannot fully rely upon the exit polls. All right, so when it comes to the New Zealand, right, yeah, prediction is the word. These are just predictions. That is the word that was slipping from my mind. Yes, sir, but in all the 11 exit polls favored UTF. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Okay, so over here, when it comes to the free trade agreement, over here, the free trade agreement, New Zealand will remove all the goods from the tariffs. All goods tariffs will be removed immediately. And India has excluded the sensitive sector. That is the dairy sector. It had been completely excluded from this free trade agreement that we have signed with the New Zealand. Now, over here, New Zealand had committed to facilitate 1.68 lakh crore rupees or $20 billion investment over the 15 years as well. And India will create the dedicated investor desk for the New Zealand business as well. All right, so these are the terms that are there in the free trade agreement that had been signed. Over here, it is very important that this complete agreement or the free trade agreement with New Zealand, it is of a very good it is of, I don't know why the lighting is dim. We have lots of lights that are over here. Maybe there is a problem. All right, so I will ask the team to look after it. Why do you and many other YouTube channels cover 29th April newspaper as 30th April? This is not 29th April. This is 30th April of the newspaper. All right, if you want, I will send the newspaper as well. All right. So this is the newspaper that I have, and this is just a second. All right, we are not covering the 29th of April of the newspaper. All right, this is today's newspaper, and you can see over here as well. I have the article as well. This article is there in the editorial of 30th of April newspaper itself. Saurabh. All right, it is there in the editorial column. I have told you even that this is where we have the editorial that is there. All right, now over here, when it comes to the free trade agreement with New Zealand, so this is of very good and important strategic significance because when it comes to the imports, so we are importing at least near about 16% that is from the China. All right, and now when it comes to the West Asian crisis, all right, so now we know that there is the need to diversify. And ultimately, when it comes to the diversification, it is very important that India signs the lots of, lots of free trade agreements, bilateral agreements, multilateral agreements, so that we can diversify our basket of the imports as well as exports as well. Right. At the same time, when it comes to China Plus policy, basically China Plus policy is about investment into India. That is, that is for the countries which are looking for the alternative to China. So that is China Plus policy. All right. At the same time, there is also uncertainty, because we have seen in the past that Mr. Donald Trump, who is president of USA, so he suddenly, he suddenly changes everything over the period of night time. All right, so ultimately there is an uncertainty that we have seen in the Trump administration as well related to the tariffs, and therefore there is urgency that we should diversify our export destinations as well. There is also the precedent that we have seen during the European Free Trade Agreement, and there is the facilitation commitment of the investment amounting to $100 billion by the EFTA. All right. At the same time, when it comes to the New Zealand economy, if you'll see the New Zealand economy, it is just about 1/16th of India. But at the same time, this free trade agreement between India and New Zealand, it is symbolic and it is of a higher strategic value. All right. And it also supports India's supply chain resilience after the COVID period as well. So these are the various FTAs, again important for your prelims, So these are the various recent FTAs that we have signed. We have signed the FTA or the free trade agreement with UAE in 2022. And over here, the win for India was that there will be zero duty for Indian exports. That is for the textile, gems and jewelry as well. At the same time, with Australia, we have signed ECTA, and this was again signed in 2022. Over here, there had been reduced duty on more than 85% of the Australian goods. All right. At the same time, EFTA, with the EFTA nations, we have signed a free trade agreement in 2024. Now, EFTA includes, we have Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein and Switzerland. So there are total 4 nations that are there in EFTA, and with these EFTA nations, we have signed the free trade agreement, and over here there had been the investment facilitation of $100 billion. Then with UK, we have signed in 2024, and over here with this free trade agreement, we have covered, or we have included the service access as well as the mobility provisions as well. And in 2026, we have signed the kind of the free trade agreement with New Zealand. What is EU and EFTA difference? So EU is with European Union, but EFTA has only 4 of the countries. All right, only 4 countries are there. That is, there is Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein and Switzerland. Please remember this, that this is very important and could be asked in the prelims as well, that what is or what are the countries that are under the EFTA framework. All right, so now over here, when it comes to the free trade agreement, so there would be, with New Zealand, there will be 100% duty-free access when it comes to the Indian exports. That is textiles, leather, machinery and the pharma industry, they will be benefited by this free trade agreement. When it comes to the exports, so New Zealand exports will have duty-free access for the wool, wood, coal and also sheep meat. All right, there is an investment facilitation of $20 billion over the next 15 years, and there will be dedicated IT desk or India desk for the New Zealand investors as well in India. All right. At the same time, visa quota, there will be 5,000 for the professionals, that is, which are the professionals under this services of IT, engineering, healthcare, and even for the Ayush professionals. And the sensitive items had been excluded. All right, the dairy, onions, sugar, gems, copper and aluminium, these are the sectors which had been excluded from the free trade agreement with New Zealand. And acceptance of pharmaceutical inspection reports from the US FDA and UK MHRA had been accepted. So again, this is a win for India when this free trade agreement had been signed. All right, now over here, yes, Kaizen. All right, over here, this is the question that may be asked in your examination. Consider following statements regarding the India-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement 2026. First, it eliminates duties on 100% of Indian exports to New Zealand. The dairy sector has been open to New Zealand exporters under a tariff rate quota system. New Zealand has committed to invest $20 billion in India over 15 years. So, which of the statement given above are correct? Tell me. Tell me, which is correct? Yes, right one will be the C. Alright, why C? Because the dairy sector had been excluded. Alright, and the rest of them are true. So it will be 1 and 3. That is C is the right answer. Over here, the correct answer will be C. Now coming to the next piece of the news that is there, it is again an editorial piece I was talking to you about. This editorial piece is written by Shashi Tharoor, and this is the war on Iran and the Gulf shattered illusions. So this is again a very important piece of the news article or the editorial that you will find in today's newspaper. Now coming to this article over here, this article mentions that right now what are the current situations when it comes to US and Iran. Alright, so there had been the war that had begun on 28th of February. Over here, US and Israeli, they have striked the Iran, and ultimately after 28th February on 8th of April, there was a ceasefire that was declared. At the same time, second statement is we import right. I didn't get you, Kaizen. All right. At the same time, when it comes to the Riyal, all right, Riyal, that is the currency of Iran, it is at all-time low or at record low. It is at 1.8 million per US dollar. All right. At the same time, when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, that has been already blockaded by both Iran as well as by US as well. Iran rejects the latest deal that had been given or put forward by US. At the same time, when it comes to the cost, so there had been total $25 billion that had been costed by this war, and there are more than 4,000 of the person which had been arrested and more than 21 that had been executed in Iran after the start of the war. All right, over here, Trump says that Iran must get smart soon on the nuclear program. And right now, because of the implication of this West Asian crisis, the Brent crude is at $117 per barrel. So this is very high. This is very high after the ceasefire, and that is what we are seeing right now. At the same time, I was reading a news in the morning as well, where the US Senate has, blockaded Mr. Trump from launching any kind of war over Cuba. All right, so that has also been in news that the Senate, it has passed a resolution that if there has to be any military operation against Cuba, so that has to have a vote or support of the Congress, and then only can Mr. Donald Trump, he can launch any offensive against Cuba as well. All right. Now over here, what is the exposure of India when it comes to the West Asian crisis? So we are seeing that the oil marketing companies, they are losing every day. They are losing rupees 14 per litre on the petrol, 18 rupees per litre on diesel, and LPG is under recovery of 80,000 crore rupees. At the same time, the fertilizer subsidy, that may rise to 2.05 to 2.25 lakh crore. All right, because the fertilizers industry or the fertilizer sector had been hit very hard because of the war with the war that is going on in West Asia. All right, the natural gas imports, they have risen up by 20.5% year-on-year basis. Domestic production had been shut down or slowed down, and it is at 4.3%. The Gulf remittances at risk when it comes to India, because we have the Indian diasporas that lives in the Gulf region. All right. Yes, 1.8 million per dollar. All right. At the same time, the transit routes that are through Dubai, they had been disrupted, and there is the higher insurance premiums. Now, because of the ships, when the ships, they move from one place to the another, so they are insured. And when they are insured, that is on the basis of the risk that they will have to take. Now, that insurance premium had been risen because there is more risk in the region. And when it comes to shipping, we have added we have added 62 vessels, and also we have investment in the fiscal year 2027 that would be of 51,383 crore rupees. So these are the implications that are there, or the impact of this crisis that India has. Now over here, this complete scenario, it has a kind of impact or implication on nearly all of the fields that we have. All right, like for example, when it comes to the economy, so there had been fuel inflation, and this fuel inflation that will increase the stagflation risk, as well as there will be supply chain disruption, and this supply chain disruption we are already seeing in the country. All right, at the same time, there is the rising diplomacy of Pakistan, where it is mediating between US and Iran, and at the same time, India is silent over the complete crisis, because for India, both the nations, they are very important. For India, it is US also that is very important, and at the same time, along with this, the Iran is also important, because we have the ties that moves back to the ancient time period. All right, it has also concerns because the surge in the LNG imports that will increase, or that is a kind of a barrier to the net zero commitments that India has. And also there is another perspective as well, that is, should India mediate between US and Iran, or there should be the strategic restraint that India should have. So these are the, again, very important perspective that this complete news it throws to us. All right. Now, next important news is about the Supreme Court on this hate speech, and over here they have said that it is us versus them when it comes to the hate speech. Now, over here, when it comes to the key points of the judgment, so there is total 125 page of the judgment that had been written by the Justice, Honorable Justice Vikram Nath and Sandeep Mehta. They have said that when it comes to hate speech, it is us versus them. And ultimately, this corrodes the fraternity or the brotherhood that is there in, fraternity or brotherhood that is very important for the cohesion of the society. All right, so this is very important because fraternity is included in Article 51A, that is the fundamental duty. Over here, the Supreme Court have declined to direct any kind of enactment for the specific hate speech laws, but over here they have said that this is left to the Parliament to consider the specific legislation over the hate law. Now, when it comes to the hate laws, we do not have any specific legislation in that is for the complete or whole of India. So over here, the Supreme Court, they have said that the Supreme Court or the court, they cannot enter the legislative domain. There is a separation of power, and through the separation of power, it is the purview of the legislature that they should legislate any kind of specific law. Now, there had been poor enforcement of the existing laws and not the absence of law. That is the problem. Again, this has been reiterated in the judgment that had been there. All right. Article 19.1, it guarantees the freedom of speech and expression to all, but at the same time, yes, 19.2 is where we have the reasonable restrictions. So again, this is very important because we have Article 19.1A that provides for the freedom of speech, and there are reasonable restrictions which are there under Article 19.2. All right. At the same time, Article 21 provides for the right to life and personal liberty as well. And we have Article 51A that is about the fundamental duties that is there in the Constitution. At the same time, there are certain sections in the IPC or BNS as well. That is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and Indian Penal Code. We have Section 153A, we have Section 295A and 505. They are the existing provisions for the hate speech. At the same time, on the same day, in Supreme Court, in Sabrimala judgment, Supreme Court have said that the courts cannot herald reform in the religion. All right. And it is also important to note over here about a recent judgment or the verdict in 2018 that was in Tehseen Poonawalla case, over where the Supreme Court have said, or this was a verdict on mob lynching as well as hate speech in India. So there is a case judgment in Poonawalla. All right, in Poonawalla case, what the Supreme Court have led, it has given the guidelines to prevent any kind of mob lynching or the hate speech in India. Then in the 267th report of the Law Commission, it had suggested that there should be specific BNS or the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita amendments for the hate speech as well. In Shaheen Abdullah case in 2022, the Supreme Court have directed the police to take suo motu action. And also in 2014, there was Bas Barua committee which had recommended specific penalties for the racial slurs. Alright, so again, these are very important for your prelims point of view. You could be asked about them in your examination. Now, the next one is about the NSO survey. That is the 80th round of the health survey. Over here, when it comes to the NSO survey, this lays down, or the complete news is about the survey that had been conducted, and it says the PPRA had nearly doubled. Alright, what is PPRA? The proportion of the people who are seeking or they are registering for the ailment. That is people who are going to the doctors. Alright, that is PPRA. So the proportion of the PPRA or the proportion PPRA had nearly doubled, and this is a positive signal. Alright, at the same time, when it comes to the insurance has also tripled, but at the same time, afterwards as well, hospitalization rate, it is still below the 2014 levels. Alright. When it comes to this survey, there had been shift to the private care. Alright, there had been shift to the private care where we are seeing that there is 70 to 80% of the people which are moving towards the private hospitals. Alright. When it comes to the public outpatient OOP, what is OOP? OOP is out of the pocket expense. Alright, OOP is whatever the amount that a person is, it is giving through his own pockets. So the public outpatient OOP or out of the pocket expenses, they are nearly zero, and free essential care is accessible. It also says that non-communicable diseases, NCDs, like for example, diabetes and CVD, they are rising. Infectious diseases, they are declining. And this report also says that the 57% of PMJAY, that is Ayushman Yojana. So over here, there is enrollees which have opted for the private hospitals, yet they have incurred along with the high OOP. All right. At the same time, when it comes to the coverage and care, you can see that when it comes to Ayushman Yojana. So when it comes to Ayushman Yojana, there had been, this expert, they critique that this is of the rich for the profit and by the poor people. Alright, there had been or there could be better off use of the GFHI disproportionately. Now, what is GFHI? It is the government funded, the insurance that is provided, health insurance that has been government funded. So, better off use of the government funded health insurance disproportionately, and there had been poorest which had very rare or barely they have access to the government funded hospital or the health insurance. Alright. When it comes to OOP, that is out of pocket expense. So out of pocket expense, they have doubled despite the insurance. So insurance is not protecting them from the hardship. All right. At the same time, we have Ayushman Arogya Mandir as well. That is ARM. Now, what is difference between PMJAY or Ayushman Yojana and the ARM, that is Ayushman Arogya Mandir? Ayushman Arogya Mandir is for the primary care. Alright, it is for the primary care, and when it comes to the PMJAY or the Ayushman Yojana, so that is for the secondary and tertiary care. So when it comes to ARM or Ayushman Arogya Mandir, they had been or it has been underfunded, and alternative vision is required. That is again, it had been said in the report, and also we have to rethink whether the insurance-led UHC model is needed, or we have to strengthen the public healthcare system that is there in India. Good morning, Anu. All right. So again, important. These data are very important. You can see over here what this complete survey, it shows or portrays that when it comes to rural insurance in 2017-18, it was 12.9%, but now it had grown massively. In 2025-26, 45.5% had increased. All right. At the same time, public outpatient care, that was 33% in 2017-18, it has risen to 35%. So almost it is stagnant. There had been not any kind of sharp increase, but at the same time, when it comes to out of pocket expense, All right, when it comes to the median out-of-pocket expense, it was low in 2017-18, but now it has risen to 11,285, and this is a sharp rise that this report it portrays about. All right. So topic related to health concerns comes under GS2, not GS3. Right. But it also concerns the society as well. All right. So over here, when it comes to the health indicators, you can see the PPRA, that is the proportion of the people who are registering for the ailment. In the rural India, it was 6.8%. It has risen to 12.2%. And in the urban region, it was 9.1%. That has risen to 14.9%. All right, when it comes to GFHI coverage, that is the government-funded health insurance coverage, so it was 12.9% in 2017-18, which has risen to 45.5% in the rural region, and it was 8.9% in the urban region, that has risen to 31.8%. All right, when it comes to institutional deliveries, in the rural region, there had been 90.5%, which has increased to 95.6%. And the institutional deliveries in the urban region, they have increased to 97.8%. And when it comes to median OP, so there was no data that was explicit in 2017-18, but out-of-pocket expenses, it has risen to 11,285 in the 80th round of the survey. Now over here, we have this question that could be asked in your prelims. That is, assertion, the median out-of-pocket expenditure or OOP for hospitalization in public health facilities in India is 11,000. Reason, most citizens in rural India utilize public facilities for tertiary care due to zero median OOPE. Now, what will be the right answer? What will be the correct answer? Median out-of-pocket expenditure for hospitalization in public health facilities in India. So it is over here, 11,285 and not 1,100. All right, it is not 1,100 but 11,000. So of course, assertion A is incorrect, but the reason is true. So that is A is false, but R is true. That is D will be the correct answer. Yes. All right, so D is the right answer. Now over here again another question that pertains to the news. Which of the following best captures significance of the 80th round health survey? The first one is, it shows only infectious diseases are rising in India. Second, it highlights improved health-seeking behavior along with persistent financial burden in some cases. Then it proves medical care is now entirely free in public facilities. Or D, it is limited to urban households only. So what will be the right answer here? What is the 80th round of the health survey? It indicates, right, very good Reshma. It indicates that it is, or it highlights improved health-seeking behavior, all right, because PPRA has increased. So behavior along with persistent financial burden in some cases, because median OOPE have risen to 11,000. All right, now coming to the next important news that is in our today's The Hindu, and it is about India and China that have discussed the LAC stability and regional security as well. So again, we know that Mr. Rajnath Singh, who is Defense Minister for India, he is on visit to Bishkek, where the SCO Defense Ministers meet had been organized. And over here, along with this, on the sidelines of the meet, so Rajnath Singh have met Admiral Dong Jun, who is from China, at the SCO Defense Ministers meet in Bishkek. All right, they have discussed about the LAC peace as well as the regional security as well, tranquility as well, and also the discussions they raised, they were about the West Asian crisis or the situation that is there. Not just with the Chinese counterpart, he also met the Russian, Belarus, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan counterparts as well. When it comes to the Italy Defense Minister, all right, so he is also visiting India on 30th of April, and again that will boost the defense ties that we have with Italy. Again, because we know that Italy when it comes to Italy, when it comes to Germany, these are the countries which are, moving ahead with their defense budget. They are increasing their defense budget. So again, when it comes to the European nations, the defense ties with these nations could improve India in the defense sector. All right. And when it comes to India and Sri Lanka, so there is DIVX 2026, which is bilateral naval diving exercise, which had been completed. When it comes to India and EU, there is defense and strategic partnership, which had been signed in January 2026 again. So now these are the things, and ultimately India is boosting its presence when it comes to the defense industry as well. I have told you yesterday as well that when it comes to SCO, it is important for your prelims. It is very important for your prelims. It was established in 2001 at Shanghai, and India had been full member of SCO since 2017, the Astana conference that has happened. The members are that we have India, along with India, Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. Along with Iran and Belarus, they are the members of the SCO. All right, India had assumed SCO presidency in 2022 and 23. Again, important for your prelims. And SCO, it promotes the political, economic, and as well as security cooperation. That is very, very important. At the same time, India has a Mahasagar vision as well. That is India's maritime cooperation framework in the Indian Oceanic region. That is again that you have to keep in mind while framing any of the answers. Now this meeting, when it comes to the meeting with the Chinese counterpart, it is again very important because when it comes to SCO platform is for the India-China communication at the ministerial level. All right. At the same time, when it comes to the strategic angle, the West Asian conflict is forcing the alignment or discussions at the SCO. And this is again very challenging situations where the various countries they are, or when it comes to China, even China had been hit hard when it comes to the blockade of Strait of Hormuz because China imports lots of its oil from Iran itself. All right. At the same time, when it comes to Pakistan, we have seen that Pakistan is rising in the globe when it comes to diplomacy because it is doing the mediation, and this is a challenging position for India. All right. When it comes to India and Italy, I have told you that this aligns with the India's Europe pivot for the defense tech indigenization, and again the meeting of or the state visit by the Italian defense minister, that is again very important for India. All right. At the same time, we have to seek the statement of Mr. Rajnath, that is terrorism has no nationality. So now this statement, it is all about a strategic ambiguity. All right. So this is a question that comes into the mind. So when it comes to the SCO, so SCO was formed. OP is not zero. How can you say true? I didn't get you. Out of the pocket expenses, not zero. It's not true. I have not said that it is true. I told you that as per the survey, it is more than 11,000 that the survey it says. Yes, it is for all the examination. All right, any of the examination that you are going forward to, because ultimately when it comes to the examination, especially which are conducted by UPSC, so for UPSC, the daily newspaper is very, very important. All right. So over here, it is again very important when it comes to the US and Iran conflict. So what are the stances that India and Pakistan they have? All right. So when it comes to US and Iran conflict, so India had been strategically silent over the complete conflict, and there is caution that India has taken toward Mr. Donald Trump. At the same time, Pakistan is right now an active mediator between both the countries, and there is the ceasefire that was reached because of the facilitation that had been conducted by or concluded by Pakistan. When it comes to the SCO security, so India's position is that we favor or we emphasize on the zero tolerance policy for the terrorism. At the same time, Pakistan is member of the security framework, and there are diplomatic gains for Pakistan through SCO. When it comes to LAC stability, so there is disengagement focus when it comes to the LAC between India and China, and also border settlement is needed. All right. When it comes to Pakistan, Pakistan is just an observer for the India and China dynamics that it is, Pakistan keeps an eye on it. And when it comes to deterrence, so we had conducted Operation Sindoor, and over here there were cost imposition. All right. At the same time, Pakistan is testing the surface-to-surface missiles as well. That is Fatah and Abdali, that they have conducted the recent missile test. SCO is Shanghai Cooperation Organization. All right. So that is SCO. Yes, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That's true. All right, the next news is about the creamy layer debate. All right, why has the creamy layer debate returned to the court? Now, again, when it comes to this news, so what this news is all about? So this news is all about the fresh PIL, or the public interest litigation, that had been filed by Ashwani Kumar Upadhyay. Now, this PIL, it seeks that there should be a creamy layer for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes as well. This is based on a judgment that was passed by Supreme Court, Davinder Singh judgment in 2024, where Supreme Court have permitted that there should be sub-classification of, or there can be sub-classification of the scheduled caste. Now, over here, there were passing observations that were made by 4 of the 7 judges, and they are not binding. They are not binding on the for the creamy layer. All right. At the same time, when it comes to Union of India versus Rohit Nathan, over here, this was, the Supreme Court had stuck down the PSU salary as the sole creamy layer criteria. All right. The salary could not be the sole criteria for determining the creamy layer. That is, it is what the Supreme Court have laid down. All right. In 1993, there was the status based of it was said that this reservation, it cannot be solely on the base of the income that was said by the Supreme Court. Now, over here, these are certain of the judgments that were passed by Supreme Court. Indira Sahni case in 1992, where the creamy layer for the other backward classes was laid down, and it upheld the 50% of the reservation or the cap as well. In Davinder Singh in 2024, the Supreme Court have said that there could be sub-classification of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, but at the same time, the creamy layer was not included into this. All right. At the same time, when it comes to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, so Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in 1932 have warned that the economic progress, it cannot be coterminous with social emancipation. All right, there are Article 15.4 and also 16.4 that are the constitutional basis that are for the reservation of the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes in the various jobs as well as the vacancies. And there are also, when it comes to the presidential list, the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe, they are designated, not conditioned on any kind of poverty. All right, at the same time, when it comes to the scheduled caste list, it is under Article 341, and it is Parliament's exclusive prerogative when it comes to the scheduled caste. Now, over here, when it comes to the statement or the warning that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said, it was that the economic progress and social emancipation, they travel on different tracks. All right, like for example, if we'll take the example, a propertied and educated Mahar, he still faces caste-based discrimination and proving that income. This proves that income cannot substitute for the caste disadvantage. All right. Subclassification, that is in Davinder Singh, it directs the benefits to least represented within the scheduled caste. Creamy layer excludes them. And this is the fundamentally different instruments that we are talking about. And that is the basis of this complete the debate that have again started, and that is the creamy layer for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes as well. Now, these are again important for your upcoming prelims. We have Indira Sahni judgment that was there in 1992, and over here creamy layer was laid down for the other backward classes, and over here the rationale was that the economic attainment measures erasure of the social disadvantage. All right, then when it comes to E.V. Chinaiya case in 2004, very important that it prohibited the sub-classification of the scheduled caste. All right, scheduled caste, they were treated as a monolithic group, and Article 341 is final. That was laid down, or it was the rationale behind giving this verdict in Chinaiya case. Then came in 2024 Davinder Singh case, which reversed the judgment of Chinaiya case, and it permitted the sub-classification within scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, and then there was Rohit Nathan case in 2026 which said that the parental salary, it cannot or it alone is not determining for the purpose of reservation, and it restored the status base, that is class 1, class 2 post over pure income proxy. Alright, so these are again important cases that you should remember for your upcoming prelims. Now, when it comes to the question, this question could be asked with reference to the Davinder Singh judgment in 2024. Consider the following statement. It overruled the E.V. Chinnaiya 2004 judgment. It held that Article 341 creates a homogeneous class that cannot be subclassified by states. Third, it suggests the applicability of the creamy layer principle to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Which of the statement given above is correct? Which statement will be correct? Tell me. Alright, so over here also, it held that Article 341 creates a homogeneous class that cannot be subclassified by the states. That was not in Davinder Singh judgment, because Davinder Singh judgment said that there could be subclassification that could be done. The rest of the statement are true. That is 1 and 3. That is answer will be C. That is 1 and 3 only. Alright, next question is with reference to the creamy layer principle. With reference to the creamy layer principle, consider the following statements. First, it was first introduced for the scheduled caste in the Indira Sohani case in 1992. Second, it excludes individuals from reservation benefits based on both status and income. Right, Ramu. Alright, so what will be the right answer here? So here the correct answer is first statement is incorrect. It was introduced for not for the scheduled caste but for the OBCs. Alright, it was introduced for the OBCs and that is why first statement is incorrect. Second statement is true. It excludes individuals from reservation benefits based on both status and income criteria. The sole criteria of income is not there. It is status and income. That is B, that is 2 only is the right answer. Now, next of the important news that is there is that 657 artifacts, trafficked artifacts, they have returned to India. Alright, now when it comes to this news, the complete news is all about there are total 657 of the antiquities which have returned and they are collectively valued at more than or around $14 million. Alright, they have been valued at $14 million and they will be delivered in 3 phases. Alright, there had been 612 which were delivered in November 2024, 26 were delivered in July 2025 and 19 in April 2026. Now over here, this is linked to Subhash Kapoor, who had been trafficker, and even Nancy Wiener networks as well. The star piece that had been returned to India is the red sandstone Buddha in Abhay Mudra, which is worth $7.5 million. Alright. At the same time, there is also bronze Avalokiteshwar that had been returned. It is from Sirpur in Chhattisgarh, and the craftsman was Dronaditya, who crafted this bronze idol of Avalokiteshvara. Alright, at the same time, the ceremony will be held at the Indian Consulate Journal in New York, and where these artifacts they were returned to India. Now, this when it comes to the artifacts that had been returned, so this connects to the Antiquities and Art Treasure Acts 1972, which is the primary legislation which covers the antiquities in India. Also, it connects with the UNESCO Convention of 1970, which have laid down the provision for the illicit traffic of the cultural property. There is also Interpol Works of Art Unit, which is a global cooperation mechanism when it comes to trafficking of the arts or the artifacts. And India's Mission 75 is that we are tracking the 75 stolen artifacts, and this was the Mission 75 was 2022 initiative. Subhash Kapoor, he ran Art of the Past Gallery in New York, alright, and he is the largest known trafficker when it comes to these artifacts. And also Abhay Mudra is the gesture of protection, and this has also iconographic significance when it comes to the Buddha's mudra. Alright, at the same time, when it comes to this news, so this news has a multiple dimension to that could be attached to this. That is when it comes to the cultural imperialism. So we have seen that the Western Museum, they are holding lots of looted Asian artifacts which are there, and they have been displayed in the museum. So this is just like a cultural imperialism that we are witnessing right now. All right. When it comes to the artifact, their return have strengthened the bilateral goodwill between India and US, and this is where India as a soft power could be seen. All right. And when it comes to the artifact, so we are asking for the Kohinoor. Where is our Kohinoor? All right. We are also asking for the Nataraj bronze idols which are there. This is the larger repatriation agenda that India has right now. All right, it also connects with the GS4 paper, the ethics paper, and that is the duty of states to preserve the cultural heritage or the museum accountability. The both of the angles are very important. Now, there are also the Elgin marbles, which are, they are in the, there is again same or similar debate between Greece and UK. There were Elgin marbles that are there in UK. Then benign bronze, that is between Nigeria and UK. They are the similar debates that you can see when it comes to that. Yes, royal family. That's true. All right, the next news is about the increased imports bios, natural gas stocks in March. Again, this is about the natural gas crisis or the security that we can speak about. Now, there is the total gas that is available in March. It is 5,726 MMSCM. That is more than, or it is 7.8% year-on-year basis that have increased. Now, the domestic production is 2,381, and there had been a decline of the domestic production by 4.3%. All right, this is the first decline after the war or the US crisis, US-Iran crisis. The LNG imports were 2,888, and that has increased by 20.5%. And that is the buffer of the domestic shortfall that you can see right now. All right, when it comes to West Asian war, so this has led to the blockade of the Hormuz or Strait of Hormuz that have, stressed out the complete global supply chain. The government plan is for the 62 new vessels along with the increased of the investment in the maritime, that is 51,383 crore of the investment will be done in fiscal year 2027. At the same time, there is another news that relates to E100 as well. That is 100% ethanol. All right, so this has been proposed as approved automotive fuel, and this is where we are pushing for the alternative energy. And UAE exiting the OPEC, it is also where the India is monitoring the impact. And right now, it is too early to say what impact it will have for the global dynamics. All right, the next news is about Ladakh structuring or restructuring, where 5 new districts have been carved. And over here, the Kargil leaders, they have opposed the new districts which have been formed in Ladakh. Now, over here, when it comes to the LG or the Lieutenant Governor there, Vimal Kumar Saxena, he have formally inaugurated the 5 new districts which had been added to the Union Territory of Ladakh. All right, and there will be 2-day visit of Home Minister Amit Shah to Ladakh region. And over here, what these the Kargil group or the Kargil the people they have said that there will be, if the Kargil leaders, they are crying that there will be 5 Buddhist majority of the districts along with 2 Muslim majority, and this is where they are saying that this is something that we are doing it wrong. The Kargil Democratic Alliance, they said that this complete rearrangement of the Ladakh had been skewed, and also it is the discriminatory restructuring that will be there. All right, at the same time, when it comes to the Sanku and Shakar Chiktan Saghole, these are the Muslim majority regions which had been excluded from the new districts. And when it comes to the constitutional basis, so Article 3, it gives the Parliament the power to form or restructure the states as well as union territories that are there. Now, there had been abrogation of Article 370 in 2019 that led to the formation of Ladakh as a union territory, and now there are the district restructuring that we are seeing in Ladakh. At the same time, Ladakh wants it to be included in 6th schedule and also demands the complete statehood that it asks for. So again, like I said, that there is another news in the today's newspaper. This is about the E100, and over here the rules had been amended, and it says that E100, that is 100% ethanol, it could be used as a fuel. But at the same time, after these rules had been changed, now there would be possibilities or research and development that had to be done for manufacturing such kind of vehicles which will be able to, or which can run on 100% of ethanol. So there would be homologation. Now, homologation is the official certification where it ensures that a vehicle or its components complies with government technical, safety and environmental regulation before it could be released or sold in the market. All right. So again, these are some of the questions that you can find in your prelims based on today's newspaper. The first one is, the friendship bench model recently discussed in the context of mental health originated in India, Sweden, Zimbabwe or Canada. So there is an article about mental health, and this friendship bench model is where there are the older ladies. Now, older ladies, they had been trained. All right, they had been trained. And now what they do is that, you go to the parks. All right, generally what happens is that for the walk or for, for visiting or wherever you are feeling gloomy, we visit parks, we visit nature. And in those parks, there are benches. All right, there are benches. We sit there. So these ladies, the older ladies, they had been trained, and then they go and they sit on the benches. All right, then they sit on the bench, and they also, they listen to the people, they listen to their stories, and they, in a kind of a way, they console them, or you can say that they try to, overpower, or they try to overcome the challenges, the mental challenges that these people are facing right now. So basically, this is the friendship bench model, which is recently discussed in the context of the mental health, and it originated from Zimbabwe. All right, it was Zimbabwe where this has achieved success. Now, next question is, consider the following pairs of shrines and their locations as per Char Dham Yatra. We have Yamunotri near Janki Chatti, Kedarnath near Vasuki Tal, then Badrinath near Mana village. So you have to, how many of the pairs above are correctly matched? So you have to tell which one or which all are correctly matched. So the right answer here will be, it will be all three. All right, all of them had been correctly matched. Yamunotri near Janki Chatti, then we have Kedarnath near Vasuki Tal, then Badrinath near Mana village. All right. Now, these are the questions that you can practice for your mains as well. The first question is, hate speech is not merely a speech issue but a fraternity issue. Discuss in the Indian constitutional context. Then second question is, technology cannot substitute for road design and enforcement. Discuss in relation to V2V communication in India. Now, what is V2V communication? V2V communication is vehicle to vehicle communication. This is vehicle to vehicle communication. All right. Then question number 3, examine the ethical significance of repatriating trafficked antiquities to their country of origin. So these are the questions that you can try for, or you can try for the mains examination. Now, when it comes to today's newspaper, you can see that there are lots of interlinkages that you can form. That is, when it comes to the Iran war, so we have seen that the prices of the oil and gases, they have risen. And ultimately, we are also seeing out of the pocket expenses that have risen because that we have seen in the health survey recently. So ultimately, this all connects because a person will be paying more for the petrol and gas as well. And he is already paying more for his health perspective. So this will have economic stress over the household. All right, there will be increased spending, and ultimately the stress will be there on the households. Then the West Bengal elections, we have seen that the SIR had been conducted, electoral roll manipulation had been alleged over the West Bengal election, and over here Election Commission's credibility had been questioned. So again, this is very important because of the democracy health, where the institutions which are responsible for the elections, they should never be questioned. All right, their image and also their credibility, that should be maintained, and the public trust should be maintained in the institutions which are very important for the democracy or democratic setup. All right, then when it comes to the hate speech, we have seen that there had been Supreme Court ruling. Along with this, there is another ruling about the creamy layer. Now, this is where we are seeing that the judiciary is restraining itself. There is a judicial restraint doctrine, and both decline to legislate over the laws which the legislature should legislate. When it comes to India and New Zealand free trade agreement, and also we can see that there is the meeting of the defense ministers at Bishkek for the SCO. This is where we are seeing that India is moving towards multi-vector foreign policy. All right, then we have antiquities return. This could be connected to Great Nicobar project, where Rahul Gandhi have criticized, and he have said that they will oppose the Great Nicobar project. Yes, I have not included this news because we have discussed Great Nicobar project in detail in the previous sessions. All right, so this is where the cultural heritage as well as development tension you can see. Then when it comes to the rising diplomacy of Pakistan, we are seeing that it is acting as Iran mediator. All right, this is where India's strategic restraint had been questioned in the SCO speech that was given by Mr. Rajnath Singh. All right, these are something that you have to remember from today's newspaper. That is, there had been a record of polling, or you can say the voter turnout, when it comes to West Bengal, 92.9%. At the same time, there had been allegations of SIR distortion. The Supreme Court had intervened. The institutional credibility which had been questioned. So this is the core of GS paper 2, polity and governance. At the same time, Iran war, it has the 5-point impact over India. That is, it is impacting the fuel, it is impacting the LPG, LNG, remittances, as well as shipping also. When it comes to creamy layer, it is not equal to subclassification. All right, creamy layer is not subclassification. Davinder Singh permits, the case of the Davinder Singh, it only permits the letter, that is subclassification. It does not permit the inclusion of the creamy layer. So this is again important for understanding the complete perspective. All right, so that would be all. But at the same time, today is the last date of the offer that we are providing to you. Now, this is the last day where you could avail the 50% off on all the UPSC courses, along with the double validity as well. For this, you have to use the code BRSLive, and if you will use the code, ultimately you will be provided with 50% off the off, as well as double validity will be given to you. Today is the last day, and you can enroll into these two important courses for your GS foundation. We have Resolution P2I batch, that is we have. All right, now any doubts, you can ask me your doubts. Thank you, Ramu. Thank you, Reshma. Krishna, thank you. Sure, see you tomorrow, Ramu. Thank you, Kaizen. All right, thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Jai Hind. And not tomorrow. We'll see you today also at 5 o'clock. I'm coming in front of you. We all know that the prelims is just over the head. All right. And the prelims will be conducted for 2026. So I'll be live today. And right from today, we'll be live at 5 o'clock as well, along with me, because what we'll be doing is that we'll be doing a complete revision. And through this series that I have planned, you will find at least 18 to 20 questions in your upcoming prelims. And this, I am very sure about it, because of all the topics that I'll be teaching or I'll be touching, that covers a lot of things that was asked, or that UPSC asked in the current affairs. So that is, again, it is very important that we will be meeting at 5 o'clock. We'll be discussing which all, and this is all data driven thing that I'm talking about. I'll be talking about, all the percentages of the different sectors from which the current affairs had been asked, and which all topics had been asked, and how we'll be covering every of them in our today's in our sessions or the series every day. All right, so that would be all. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Yes, I'll see you in the evening at 5 o'clock. Thank you. Bye-bye.